So nice to not have to change the window size all the time anymore. What? Right, now that I finished part 1 of that video, I can finally watch part 2. And it's gonna be glorious! Ah, that's a lot of backup I have. That we can sell some. I'll roll with it for now though.
Hello folks and welcome to part 2 of the BlazBlue Retrospective. In case you missed part 1, you can find the cardboard popping up right now. Go ahead and check it out.
I have some wooden weapons, I don't need to get rid of any for the
This isn't going
torch.
to be like any other multi-part fighting game retrospective
As long as
we've ever
I'm...
done. Normally when we have to divide a retrospective up, it's because we're covering everything in chronological order and there's just too much to fit into one video. But not here. In part 1, we already covered all the games, their development, their mechanics, their reception. We covered pretty much everything. Although, I should address 2 issues with that first video right here at the top. Number 1, at the end of the video, I mentioned that the future of BlazBlue is up in the air right now after the game's creator, Mori P. left Arc System Works. Spoiler if you haven't watched that first video yet. And while we still don't know what Arc Systems has planned for this game's future, I did imply that the new roguelike game that was in development might currently be in some trouble because we haven't heard anything about that game ever since Mori P. left the company. But since that very first video went up, some brand new footage of the game was revealed, letting us know that yes, it is indeed still coming out. So hey, that's actually some good news. We still don't know if Arc Systems is going to give them another fighting game anytime in the future, but they are at least still willing to let other companies make smaller titles around it. So it looks like for now, the franchise will get to continue on in some way, shape, or form. And the other big correction I have to make for Part 1, and this one I am truly embarrassed about. I call the X-Blaze games light novels. They are not light novels, they are visual novels. Folks, I wish I could say it was the first time I got those two things mixed up, but it isn't, and it's not going to be the last.
Oh yeah, he was calling them
games and visual novels are books with pictures in them. I don't even know how that got in my head. It's just been that way for years. So yes, I have to apologize. I should not have said that X-Blaze Lost Memories was a bad light novel. I should have said that was a bad visual novel. Just the worst visual novel I've ever played. Truly a horrible, horrible visual novel. There. Hope that cleared everything up. Glad I got that out of my chest. Do not play X-Blaze Lost Memories. So, as I was saying, normally we cover everything about these games in chronological order, but in Part 1 of the BlazBlue retrospective, we left out a very important part. The story. And that's because the story of BlazBlue is its own separate beast. BlazBlue's story is incredibly important to the series, being larger than any other fighting game story, and for many people it's the main draw of the game, so I have to cover it. Unfortunately, the story of BlazBlue is more blue than a hot air balloon and more complicated than reading Gravity's Rainbow backwards. So I realized early on when working on this retrospective that if I tried to talk about that while covering the gameplay and the development and everything else, it would make the video a jumbled mess. It would be like if you were on a road trip and every couple of miles you had to keep stopping at the nearest library to study for a physics exam. It would just break the entire flow of the video and it would make it way too hard to keep all that information in your head at once. So instead, I decided to split the story discussion off into its own video, and that's what we're doing today. And I know some people might think I'm exaggerating about the story being complicated, so before we begin, I just want to make it clear, no, I am not. BlazBlue's story isn't just the longest in any fighting game, it's also one of the most incomprehensive stories in any game, period. And that doesn't mean it's bad, no, not at all. This story certainly isn't bad, but it is complicated. And before we start delving into it, I feel we need to address why that is. I saw so many people after Part 1 of the retrospective say that they wanted to check out these games, and that's great. But I know some of y'all probably went into these story modes and thought, what the heck is going on? So I feel we should actually address what makes this story so complicated that we all understand it. But if you just want to see what we actually begin talking about the story proper, go ahead and jump to the story.
That's where I'm dodging.
Okay, for starters, the story of all BlazBlue games takes place over the course of a few weeks. But there is a massive boatload of backstory to this world, going back hundreds and hundreds of years. And you need to know this backstory to understand anything that's going on. Problem is, they don't explain to you most of the backstory until after the parts of the story where you need to know the backstory. Secondly, BlazBlue loves its made-up nouns and verbs. There are so many names and places and special items and magical abilities, all of which have their own unique names. There are, as we said in Part 1, side modes that explain to you what many of these terms are. But yeah,
this is kind of impossible.
Going on a road trip where you had to keep stopping to study for an exam? That's kind of what this is. It's hard to keep all of that in your brain when you have to sit through a giant chunk of story, only to then unlock the side content that explains to you what part of what you just played means. And that's if they decide to explain to you this information in the game itself, because there is so much important information that's locked behind mangas, light novels, visual novels, phone games. And I'm pretty sure that roguelike I mentioned is going to end up having some kind of important information that changes everything that we knew about this entire story and will poorly age this video the moment it comes out. So if you want to get into BlazBlue, and you play the core main fighting games, and you just play those games, and you sit through every single part of that game and study every single bit of information that it gives you, you're still not going to know what a chunk of this story is about. And lastly, and quite possibly the biggest roadblock to understanding the story of BlazBlue, is that nothing in BlazBlue can ever just be one thing. Over the course of making these videos, some big BlazBlue fans contacted me and mentioned that this story had several rewrites. But as I worked my way through the games, I never really noticed any clear rewrites. There was only one or two instances I noticed where a character said something different from what we had seen in a previous game. But then it hit me. Oh, that's not the kind of rewrites this game has. No, the kind of rewrites that this game has are things like, hey, remember that thing that happened in the last game? Remember how we said it happened because of A? Well, it also happened because of B, and C, and D, which were all happening at the exact same time as A. And also because of E and F, which happened years before the game began. In part 1, I said BlazBlue felt like that story that you came up with in your head in middle school, but instead of writing it down, you just kept adding on to it more and more as time went on. And yeah, it turns out that's exactly what happened. Now, I know some of y'all are wondering why I wanted to talk about the complexities of this story before going into it, and that's because I wanted to make something clear. Today, I'm going to explain to you the story of BlazBlue. But I'm not going to cover the entire story of BlazBlue. Yes, when I announced that I was going to be doing this retrospective, I had several fans contacting me saying, make sure to talk about this manga, make sure to talk about this book. Heck, I even had one person contacting me saying I needed to make sure to cover the backstories of Persona 4, Under Night in Birth, and Ruby because BlazBlue had a crossover with them. Which, no? When I do the Street Fighter retrospective later this year, I'm not going to stop when I get to Street Fighter Cross Tekken to explain the entire history of the Mishima family blood feud. I don't... To explain the entire history of the Mishima family blood feud. I really hope that person was joking about that. But yes, I had many people tell me that I had to make sure to cover all the mangas in addition to the games, and believe me guys, I get it. They do each contain bits of information that are important, and I know that you're all very passionate about this series, and you want to make sure that I cover all of it. I totally understand that. But do you know who else contacted me when I announced that I was going to be doing this retrospective? People who had never gone into BlazBlue because they found the lore and the story to be too intimidating. Yeah, I had several people telling me that they were excited for this retrospective because they always wanted to know what BlazBlue was about, but it was just too much for them to tackle on their own. And that's who I'm making this video for today. Today I want to make a video that takes the massive, insane story of BlazBlue and condenses it down into something that still captures all the important parts, includes all the vital information, but also makes it manageable and understandable for anyone, whether that be a longtime player, a brand new fan, or just someone on the outside who's always been curious. So in other words, I will not be covering any of the side content unless it is absolutely necessary to the main plot. If something happens in the story because of A, B, C, D, E, and F, but you only need to know about A, then I'm only going to cover A. If something has a special name, that special name only makes understanding it more confusing, I'm going to leave it out. And this is the one that is really going to hurt some people, but while I'm going to make sure to mention as many playable characters as I can, if that character is not important to the overall plot, and I hate telling you guys this, but there are a lot of characters that are not important to the overall plot, then I'm not going to cover them that much. And what I'm going to say, every single character in this series has their own plotline. They have their own backstory. They have their own goals. They have their own mission. It's one of the things that makes these characters so good. But if I tried to cover all of them in this video, it would just become even more of a mess than it already is. So we're just going to stick to the plot points that matter to the overall story. Also, as I said, this game loves to explain backstories long after you need to know them. I will not be doing that. I will be explaining the events of this story in the order that I feel makes them the most comprehensive. But okay, I know that was a lot, and I apologize for the delay, but well, let's just say I know if I didn't explain all of that, then there would be a ton of people saying you forgot to mention this in the comments. Guys, trust me, there is totally a chance that I'm going to end up forgetting to mention something that is very important. But odds are, if I don't bring something up in today's video, it's not because I forgot it, it's because I'm choosing to leave it out to keep this story simplified and accessible. After all, the point of this video today is not to be the BlazBlue wiki book on tapes, it's to try and summarize the story in a way that everyone can understand. Plus, these are good games, and I would like people to check them out, so I want to summarize this in a way that will make it seem interesting to people, but will still leave you with some stuff to find on your own when you go and play them. But that's it. I think I've laid out everything that I need to set up before we began, so now we can finally start the story.
I guess that section, I just shouldn't go in that
Our tale
spot.
begins in a world between realities, a dimension known as the Boundary. The Boundary is a space that connects all realities together, because yes, there are alternate
Dang it.
realities in these games, and they'll
Last
both come
session
up
went
much
so
later
well.
on. The Boundary is filled with a substance known as Seether. Seether is essentially magical radiation. It's a substance that exists all around us, and in small doses it's completely harmless. But thick doses of Seether can be incredibly toxic and harmful to normal humans. And at the very center of the Boundary is the most concentrated form of Seether, known as the Azure. And Seether does have magical properties that could grant someone magical powers, but Azure is in a whole other league. Azure is essentially the power to control reality itself. It gives you godlike powers to reshape all of creation. And the Azure is controlled by a giant machine called the Amaterasu Unit, also known as the Master Unit. And the Master Unit is essentially Robot God. It's the being that uses the Azure's reality-shaping powers to control the course of the universe. But the Master Unit has two guards. A shield that can block absolutely anything called the Tsukuyomi Unit, and the Susanoo Unit, a suit of armor that can destroy anything. And not just destroy, it erases its targets from existence without creating paradoxes. Yeah, it is the ultimate erase button. If something goes wrong with the Master Unit's creation, Susanoo can wipe the problem out without having to worry about wrecking the rest of reality. So, the Master Unit is firmly guarded at the center of all realities by the ultimate sword and the ultimate shield, total defense and offense. But something went wrong. Due to the magical properties of Seether, slowly Susanoo grew a soul. It gained a mind of its own. And Susanoo looked around and said, you know, I kinda got a raw deal here. I'm just forced to be the Master Unit's slave for all of eternity? I just have to stand here in the infinite nothingness waiting for Robot God to tell me what to destroy? I didn't ask for this. I was made to destroy things, and I feel like the Master Unit is holding me back. So you know what? I'm out of here. I quit. And so
Nice.
the Susanoo Unit attempted to escape the Boundary. And in the process of this, the soul inside the armor split apart from it, becoming its own separate creature, known as Yuki Terumi. After Terumi escaped, a whole bunch of stuff happened that I will get to way later in this video. But eventually, two scientists by the name of Aurelius Clover and Shuichiro Ayatsuki discovered a cauldron, which is essentially a gateway into the Boundary. Terumi found these scientists and formed an alliance with them, promising to give them information on the Boundary. Why does Terumi do this? Because he wants the two of them to build something for him. A Prime Field Device. A Prime Field Device is a humanoid-like robot that is capable of exploring the Boundary. And Terumi created a very specific type of Prime Field Device known as a Kusanagi, a sword that can kill a god. Yeah, even after freeing himself from the Master Unit, Terumi just can't let things go. He won't be happy until he's killed Robot God. Also, Terumi might just have been a spirit, but he was able to solidify his spirit into a body that he could walk around in. But he knew that, you know what, maybe, just maybe, something could end up happening to this spirit body of his. So he wanted a backup, a fake body that he could then slide his soul into in case something happened to him. So he asked Aurelius to make such a body for him. Aurelius complied and created an artificial body, but that body had a mind of its own. Why would he create a backup body for someone and then give that backup body its own mind? Because it would create drama and tension in the story later on. Okay, there actually is a reason why, but real talk, it's just so they can create drama in the story later on.
Nice.
This artificial body was known as Kazuma Kval, and he awakened in the magical city of Ishana. Oh yeah, magic is a thing in this universe, and there's whole magical societies for sorcerers who live and study in it. Kazuma finds himself in the Ishana Magical Academy, where Aurelius is a teacher, and he has no knowledge of his origin or his actual purpose. He believes himself to be just another regular student, and he thinks he just has amnesia. Now, Kazuma is a kind kid, and he ends up making friends with some of the other students, including Trinity Glassfield, a very soft-spoken and gentle bookworm who has borderline romantic feelings for Cosma, and Kanoe Mercury, a far more aggressive and hardened scholar. Now, Kanoe Mercury was her real name, but later on she would join the Ten Sages, the leading sorcerers of Vijana, and after that she would only be referred to by her rank, 9. Now, we'll get back to Cosma and his schoolyard chums in a bit, but for now, let's return to Terumi and the two scientists he was stringing along. It was now December 31st, 2099, and Relius and Shuichiro had finished their prime field device and sent it into the cauldron to explore the boundary. Unfortunately, the prime field device didn't work, and something else would emerge from the cauldron. A titanic monster made up of swirling darkness, fangs, claws, and overflowing with seether crawled out of the cauldron and started on a path of destruction. This was the Black Beast, and it would be a recurring threat throughout the entire series, so make sure to remember it now. It ripped Terumi's spirit body apart, trapped Shuichiro underground, and Relius was sucked into the cauldron, falling into the boundary. The Black Beast would begin tearing across Japan, wiping out anyone and everything in its path. The rest of the world saw what it was, and fearing what would happen if the creature continued beyond Japan, unleashed a wave of nuclear strikes on the creature. The blast destroyed Japan, but left the Black Beast untouched. This is because the Black Beast is a creature that exists outside of reason. What does that mean? Well, think of reason as anything real, anything defined by the laws of nature. So, if you exist outside of reason, then the only things that can really affect you are things that exist outside of the natural world. In other words, magic. Speaking of magic, let's go ahead and check back in on that magical school in Cosmo. Yes, Terumi's body had been destroyed, leaving him a wandering spirit barely able to hold onto this world, so that meant he needed that spare body that Relius had prepared for him. But Cosmo, because he had a mind of his own, wasn't really in a position for Terumi to take him over. So, Terumi began appearing to Cosmo, almost like a ghost haunting him, whispering in his ear, tempting him, tormenting him. Over time, he drove Cosmo mad and forced him to betray his friends, and now that his mind had been broken, Terumi was able to murder Cosmo, making this his new body. However, Terumi didn't have much time to take his new body for a test drive, as a werewolf named Valkenhayn captures him and brings him back to his master, a vampire aristocrat named Clavis Alucard. Clavis was working behind the scenes to try and do something about the Black Beast, and he believed that Shuichiro might have the key to defeating him. And so, Clavis hires Jubei, a powerful fighter who is a member of a clan of Cat Beastkin. Oh yeah, there's also animal people in this world. So, for those of you tracking home, this world has magic, vampires, werewolves, and animal-human hybrids. And also nuclear weapons, so half high fantasy, half real world, I guess. Jubei's clan of Beastkin were all wiped out by the Black Beast, and now Jubei was all that was left. Jubei ends up running into Trinity, Nine, and Nine's sister Celica, and they're able to locate the lab that Shuichiro had been working in after being trapped underground. Shuichiro by this point had passed away, but before he died, he completed the ultimate weapon to destroy the Black Beast, Kushinada's linchpin. A giant device that can neutralize Seether, which is what the Black Beast's body was made of. Here's the problem though. In order to use Kushinada's linchpin, a power source would be needed. That power source? Celica Mercury, Nine's sister, and Shuichiro's own daughter. Yes, Shuichiro was Nine and Celica's father, and he was, let's just say, not the best. Then again, as we will see later on, the bad father ranking system in BlazBlue is kind of a sliding scale. Now, why did they need Celica? It's because Celica was born with something called the power of order. And this was essentially a universal constant. It was the antibodies of reality. It's neither good nor bad, it's something the universe imbues into a person in order to counter something that would threaten him. And in this case, that threat was Seether. So Celica had been born with the power to neutralize Seether. Just being near her made any traces of Seether vanish. Unfortunately, there were limits to her power, so there was no way that she could wipe out the Black Beast by herself. But if she sacrificed herself and put her soul into the linchpin, then it would wipe out all Seether across the world, including the Black Beast. However, Nine wasn't willing to let her sister sacrifice herself, and neither was someone else. Celica had been traveling with another character, a mysterious warrior called Blood. Celica Celica had found him injured and helped heal him back, and now upon hearing that Celica was going to sacrifice herself, Blood Edge stepped in and stopped her. He said that he would face the Black Beast by himself, and he would buy everyone 1 year. During that year, they would have to work to find some kind of a way to stop the Black Beast that did sacrifice Celica. Nine promised to uphold this deal, and Blood Edge left his red coat and sword with Celica before walking into the Black Beast, dying, but in the process, causing the beast to go to sleep for a whole year. Why did this cause the beast to go to sleep? We'll get back to that later. So, Nine now had 1 year to figure out how to beat the Black Beast, and upon realizing that only magic could defeat it, but there weren't nearly enough sorcerers around to fight it, she developed a way for normal humans to weaponize magic. She created devices called grimoires, and these machines were capable of funneling Seether into them to create an artificial form of magic called Ars Magus. I'm going to repeat that, because this is one of the biggest parts of BlazBlue, and it's pretty much what this entire world would run on from this point forward. Seether is
damn it, that torch is the only way, I forgot.
An artificial form of magic. And just like regular magic, the variety of spells and abilities that can be created by Ars Magus are immense. And Ars Magus, made specifically for combat, is referred to as Ars Armagus. But in order to keep this simplified, I'm just going to refer to all Ars Magus as simply Ars Magus. But the most powerful form of Ars Magus took on the shape of 11 weapons known as the Nox Victoris. Now, near as I can tell, the Nox Victoris don't need grimoires to function. They sort of just exist as solidified Ars Magus in the shape of weapons. So you might be wondering how they can do this? Well, it's because unlike other Ars Magus, which are created by grimoires, the Nox Victoris are created by souls. Lots and lots of souls. So yeah, big power, bigger cost. So, humans now had a way to fight against the Black Beast in Ars Magus, but they still needed someone to lead them. And so a team came together. Nine, Tranny, and Jubei were joined by Valkenheim, but they still needed more power. And Nine knew where they could get it. Teremy might have destroyed their friend Kazuma, but he was incredibly strong, and Nine knew they would need that strength. So, Nine cast a spell on Teremy to control his mind, keeping him from rebelling and forcing him to work alongside them. So that made 5 mighty warriors, but they still weren't enough. Even with the armies of man wielding Ars Magus and these 5 fighters leading the charge, the Black Beast was just too strong. That's when the final warrior appeared, a mysterious armored man named Hakumen. He joined these other warriors and they became known as the 6 Heroes, and after a long battle known as the Dark War, the Black Beast was finally destroyed. However, that didn't mean that humanity had been saved. Remember how I said that the Black Beast was full of Seether, and that Seether in large doses is poisonous to humans? Yeah, well, when the Black Beast died, it released all that Seether across the planet, making almost the entire Earth uninhabitable. And so, humans fled to mountaintops where the Seether couldn't reach, and they built hierarchical cities, which are essentially cities that are stacked on top of each other. But the rising Seether wasn't the only problem left over from the war. There was still the matter of Yuki Teremy. Yes, he had been under Nine's spell during the war, but eventually he managed to break free, and he wanted revenge. He killed Tranny Glassfield and threw Nine into a cauldron. In order to stop him, Hakumen sacrificed himself by grabbing Teremy and jumping into the boundary with him. So, out of the 6 heroes, the only 2 left were Valkenheim, who had gone back to working for the Alucard family, and Jubei, who had to give the bad news to Celica, who had gone on to become a nun and open up her own church. Now, after everything that had happened, after the war, after the Black Beast, after the Seether, after having to move to the top of mountains in brand new societies, as you can imagine, the world had changed greatly. Governments all across the planet had pretty much collapsed, so a brand new ruling power rose up. A military force calling itself the Novus Orvis Librarium, otherwise known as the NOL. It was formed in order to manage all the grimoires that had been created during the Dark War, claiming they would decide who got to use them, and as you can imagine, they only thought that those loyal to the NOL should be allowed to use them. Most people didn't agree with this, and many started to rebel against the NOL, mocking them and how they held on to all these grimoires by calling them the library. The NOL set up bases in every major city and create cauldrons in their bases in order to absorb Seether from the Boundary to help power their Primars and other tools. Also because they're still trying to find the Azure Hidden at the center of the Boundary in order to gain ultimate power, but we'll delve into that later. For now, let's move away from the NOL and spotlight some other important events that were happening during this time. First up, you remember Relius? You remember how he fell into the cauldron and got lost in the Boundary? Well, the Boundary isn't just a void of magical radiation, it's also a gateway to other places and other times. Relius eventually re-emerged 80 years after he fell in, but after falling into the Boundary, he kinda went crazy. I mean, crazier than he already was. He had always been a bit unhinged, but upon falling into the Boundary, he ended up seeing the whole of creation. He got a taste of ultimate knowledge, and upon emerging and returning to the real world, he now looked at humans as nothing more than meat bags with souls in them, and he only had one goal: to gain more knowledge, and he would use whatever tools he had at his disposal, including other people, to make that happen. A few years later, Jubei, now wandering the world trying to destroy the NOL's cauldrons, again, we'll explain why that is later, ended up discovering a lab, and inside of it there were 3 young siblings, Ragna, Jin, and their sister Saya. He rescued these kids and took them back to Selga's church where she would raise them. And in case you were wondering how Jubei and Selga are still alive after all this time, it's because Jubei is a beastkin and beastkin age slowly, and Selga has healing magic that's keeping her young. Now, as I said, the NOL was scooping up power across the entire planet, but there were those who opposed them. First up was Sector 7. Sector 7 wasn't really a team or a single force, more of just a group of super scientists who all came together to share resources and data to try and fight back against the NOL. And yes, you heard right, Sector 7 was made up of scientists, 100% pure science. No Ars Magus science mixed with magic here, just good old-fashioned equations and test tubes. But one of the leading scientists for Sector 7 was Kokonoi Mercury. And if that last name sounds familiar, it's because she was the daughter of Nine and Jubei. Yes, Nine hooked up with the cat, we've all made the jokes already, let's move on. Now, Kokonoi kind of despised both of her parents. In fact, because she despised Nine so much, she refused to use magic in any way, and that's why she decided to dedicate herself to science so much. And as a result, she ended up creating several breakthroughs in her time, many of which are entirely morally on the up and up, and Kokonoi has a few people working under her, the most notable of them being Tager. Tager was a mercenary whose entire squad was wiped out while trying to capture a dangerous criminal named Azrael. But Kokonoi was able to revive him by implanting Oni DNA inside of him, because apparently Onis are also big in this universe. This brought Tager back from death, but now he had a reddish skin tone, was as big as the house, and had no memories of his past. But he does know that he trusts Kokonoi and her plans, even if sometimes she can be the worst boss in the world to him. The 2 other scientists working under Kokonoi were Lychee Failing and Lot Carmine, known to his friends as Roy. Now, Roy was fiercely loyal to Kokonoi, and Lychee was starting to fall in love with Roy, so everyone was getting along just fine. Up until Roy started to become obsessed with the Boundary and the giant cauldron that Sector 7 was keeping in their basement. He started working day and night writing down his theories on the Boundary, with every passing day becoming more and more unhinged. Kokonoi and Lychee tried to help him, but he was too far gone. And one night he snuck into the Sector 7 cauldron, peered inside, and came face to face with Yuki Terumi. Yes, Terumi just happened to escape at the exact time that Rory was looking in.
Tawag mo ba? Okay.
By the cauldron. How did Terumi get out of the Boundary? We'll explain that later. Terumi decided to do what he does best, be a total dick, and told the already unstable Roy that everything he wanted was right inside the cauldron. So Roy jumped inside of it and... Well, remember how Relius went mad from being inside the cauldron? Yeah, he was the lucky one. because the overflowing seether inside the boundary mutated Roy into a monster that would become known as Arachne. Fled Sector 7 and head toward the hierarchical city of Kagetsuchi looking for more seether. So Yuki Terumi and Relius Clover were both back and alive in the modern day. Well, mostly. Terumi was still just a spirit that was absorbing the negative emotions of the world in order to give him enough strength to stick around. He needed a new body, so Relius got to work on one, while Terumi started his own plan. Remember, Terumi still wanted to kill the Master Yun, and he needed something powerful to accomplish that. And that something would require a plan with about 1,000 overly complicated steps to it. For starters, Terumi made his way to the church where Ragna, Jin, and Saya were being raised. Now in his coachly state, Terumi couldn't do much, but he was able to tempt Saya, whispering in her ear a bit until she agreed to come with him. Terumi then handed Jin a sword, but not just any sword, Yuki Anasa, the legendary Nox Nectoris Ice Sword. And remember how I said that Nox Nectoris are all made by souls being merged together? Well, the soul in control of Yuki Anasa overpowered Jin's tiny child mind and commanded him to kill Ragna. Jin cut off Ragna's arm, killed Celica, and left Ragna to bleed out in the church as it burned down around him. Ragna was saved, however, by Jubei, who returned just in the nick of time. Jubei replaced Ragna's arm with the Azure Grimoire, one of the oldest and most powerful grimoires, with the power to tap into the Azure itself. By the way, in case anyone is still confused about this, yes, they are called grimoires, and grimoires are typically a type of book, but that's just a name. Grimoires in BlazBlue can be shaped like anything. And the Azure Grimoire is kind of an amorphous, constantly shifting blob, so Ragna is able to take the Azure Grimoire and reshape it into a fully functioning hand. So in one day, Ragna ended up losing his arm, his family, and his home, but at least he gained an incredibly powerful Grimoire. That's gotta be good for something, right? Problem is, the Azure Grimoire comes with a major drawback. It absorbs the souls of anyone around him. So yes, Ragna was able to replace his arm with this legendary Grimoire, but if he stays around anyone for too long, it'll drain their life force. Over the next several years, Ragna was trained to fight by Jubei, who was strong enough to resist the soul-eating effect of the Grimoire, and he would also receive continuous vague life lessons from another character who kept popping up from time to time, Rachel Alucard. Yeah, remember that royal vampire that I mentioned earlier, Clavis Alucard? Well, this is his daughter, and she would continuously show up to give Ragna ominous messages to try and steer him down a path. Why is she always so vague? Well, part of it is because she's a snob who views everyone as being beneath her, but it's also because Rachel just flat out can't help Ragna directly. Yes, you see, in addition to being a vampire, Rachel is also known as a bystander. At least that's what it's called in Japanese. Yeah, let me go ahead and make something clear. Most of the terms in BlazBlue are different in Japanese and in English. And for all of these, I'm going to be using the English version of the names because, well, this video is in English, so it's probably what most people watching it can understand. But in English, she is referred to as an observer, which is a fine name. The problem is, there is another thing in BlazBlue called an observer, and they didn't change the name in English, so in English, there are now two different things called observers, because the lore of BlazBlue wasn't complicated enough already. Well, okay. In all fairness, they do end up correcting this in later games. They do rename it to Onlooker, which is a fitting name. But because it has already now had two different names, and Onlooker still sounds a whole lot like Observer to me, I feel like if I called it Onlooker, it would just confuse some people. Those people would be me. So yeah, I'm just going to keep calling it Bystander, but that's the only thing I'm going to refer to by the Japanese name in this video. So, what is a bystander? Well, like the power of order is another natural constant, a law of the universe. There must always be someone who is a bystander. And whoever is chosen to be a bystander is given incredible powers, but they aren't allowed to use them. Yeah, you know the Watcher in Marvel Comics? Bystanders are just that. They have long lives, incredible powers, and can witness everything happening in the world all at once. Just so long as they promise not to interfere with the world. Yeah, they're essentially meant to be a living history book of the universe, constantly recording and cataloging everything that's going on. So Rachel could tell that Ragna was going to be important, but she couldn't do anything to directly push him towards his destiny. She had to just sit back and occasionally give him some hints, all disguised behind insults. Meanwhile, Jin was adopted by the Kisaragi family, one of the 12 richest elite families in the world, who form a group known as the Odessa. Jin went to the NOL Academy, where he excelled in his studies. Joining him at this academy were numerous other students who would go on Yayoi, another child of the duelist family, grumpy, close friend with Jin, Akota Lanaya, an upbeat squirrel-type beast-skin, Carl, who would end up leaving the school shortly after joining it, but I'll get back to him later, and Noelle Vermillion. Noelle is a sheepish girl who was also adopted by a duodecim family, and she's got a natural affinity for using arts maggots. So much so that early in her studies, she was able to summon out Volfair, but the legendary Noxley Core shaped like a pair of guns. Also, Noelle just happens to look a lot like Jin and Ragna's sister Saya. And hey, fun drinking game, take a shot every time that you hear looks a lot like Jin and Ragna's sister Saya. I'm just kidding, please don't do that, I don't want you to hurt yourself. So Jin's studies were going well, and he was rising in the ranks, everything was set up for him. That is, unless war were declared.
What's that?
War were declared. You remember I said there were people out there who were like, hoarding all this power? And in case you couldn't tell from that list of AOL Academy members, they tended to hoard them specifically for the rich and powerful. So this led to a civil war in the land of Ikarga as the core of the NOL. Now, Ikarga is referred to as a hierarchical city, but it's more of multiple hierarchical cities all working together. The battle raged on between Ikarga and the NOL, with much of the land of Ikarga being destroyed in turns. It all came to an end when Jin Kisaragi killed the Ikarga leader, Tenjo. At which point,
Ano yan? Uh-huh.
Ikarga were forced to leave their home and move to a small village inside the hierarchical city of Kagetsuchi. Hey, that's the second time we mentioned Kagetsuchi. I wonder if it's going to be important in a moment. Now, Jin Kisaragi was hailed as the hero of the Ikarga War. Not that he really cared. I haven't talked about character personalities much in this video because I mostly did that in part 1, but yeah, Jin is kind of a sociopath. He views anyone around him as being nothing more than trash, and you get the feeling that he killed Tenjo not because it was his mission, but just because he could. But nonetheless, Jin still got a major promotion for ending the civil war that was started by Ikarga. Except that it wasn't. Yeah, this isn't revealed until way later, but it's something I want you to keep in your mind right now. The Ikarga Civil War was just a cover for a battle that was happening between the NOL and Sector 7. Now, why did Sector 7 and the NOL start a war with each other instead of a country that wanted nothing to do with either of them? Well, because both sides needed a whole lot of people to die. Why did they need that? We'll come back to that later. Sorry, I know there's a huge tease, but trust me, it would make zero sense if I explained it right now. I just want you to have some context for the Ikarga War, and to be aware that Sector 7 and the NOL are both super messed up. Meanwhile, as all this was happening, Ragna had spent several years training under Jubei, and now it was time for him to graduate. Jubei went to the burned-down church and found something in there that Celica had been holding on to. A sword and jacket that belonged to Bloodedge, and he decided to give them to Ragna, who adopted the name of the man who used to wield them, now calling himself Ragna the Bloodedge. Jubei then explained to him why he had been destroying NOL cauldrons across the world, and Ragna understood he had to take up this cause as well. And so Ragna set out destroying cauldrons, attacking NOL bases, and racking up a massive body count. As a result, Ragna gained the nickname Grim Reaper, and even had the highest bounty in history, $90 billion platinum dollars, placed on his head. This didn't slow Ragna down, as he kept targeting cauldrons. He now found himself moving towards his next target, located in the hierarchical city of Kagetsuchi. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the backstory to BlazBlue. Yes, we are now finally at the first game. I told you there was a ton of backstory, and again, that was with me leaving stuff out to keep it comprehensive. But don't worry, from here on out, it's much smoother. At least I hope it is. I haven't actually written the rest of the script just yet. For all I know, everything is about to turn into an incomprehensive gibberish. Let's find out together, shall we, as we head to the events of BlazBlue Calamity Trigger. Ragna heads into Kagetsuchi and makes his way towards the cauldron. He runs into Arachne, who is now a slimy monster obsessed with fighting the Azure, so Ragna's meeting presence draws him in. Ragna defeats him, but before he can kill the beast, Lychee appears and begs him to stop. She's been living in Kagetsuchi for several years now, working as a doctor at a small location, trying to track Arachne down and find a way to return This made something in him snap. He starts capering like a madman and abandons his post to head to Nagatsuchi in the hopes of finding his brother and killing him once and for all. But upon arriving in Nagatsuchi, all he finds is a ninja by the name of Bang Shishigami. Bang was one of the top disciples of Tenjo, the leader of Akarga, and he even witnessed Jin killing his master right in front of his eyes. Bang wants nothing more than to make Jin pay, but his master told him to reject hate because love and justice and forgiveness. And Bang is carrying that message with him to Kagetsuchi, where he watches over and protects the refugees from Ikaruga. He's also kind of a goof and is constantly embarrassing himself, but the people still love him for keeping their spirits high and protecting them however he can. So Bang decides to let Jin go, continues on his way towards
Whatever happened to the Run Soul? Did the Run Soul get
the last character to head towards
retconned?
Nagatsuchi is Noelle herself. She's been tasked by the NOL with bringing Jin back, and she's being accompanied by Hazuma, the captain of the NOL's intelligence department. And yes, he's exactly who you think he is, but let's put a pin in that for now. As soon as she arrives in Kagetsuchi, Noelle is immediately attacked by Carl. You remember Carl? The kid who went to the NOL Academy? Well, he left the school and ended up becoming a vigilante, essentially a bounty hunter who chases down people for the NOL. And Carl... well, life has not been good to Carl. He's walking around with a giant mechanical doll, Nirvana, which is another one of the Nox Victoruses. Nox Victori? Not important. What is important, though, is that he doesn't call this puppet Nirvana. He calls it Sister. Why is that? Well, that's because it is his sister. Yet Carl's full name is Carl Clover. And he is the son of Relius Clover, and his father put his sister Ada's soul into Nirvana. Carl became a vigilante specifically to hunt down Ragna, because Ragna is in possession of the Azure Grimoire, and since the Azure has the power to reshape reality, Carl hopes he can use it to return his sister to normal. He questions Noelle about Ragna's whereabouts, and when she doesn't answer, he gets violent. Noelle is able to defeat him thanks to her own Nox Victoris, and Noelle and Hazuma head towards the cauldron as well. Also worth pointing out that after this battle, Carl is healed by Lychee, who reminds him of his sister Ada, and he also meets Bang, who provides Carl some positive reinforcement and support. Something Carl has probably never experienced in his life. At the NOL base above the cauldron, Ragna and Jin meet, and Jin's overpowered with plus. They battle, and Ragna comes out on top, knocking Jin out. Even though Ragna knows they have unfinished business, the cauldron has to be dealt with first. However, as he makes his way deeper and deeper down to the building, he senses an incredible power. Someone is watching and waiting for him. And Ragna comes face to face with Hakumen. Yes, Hakumen was pulled out of the boundary by Kokonoi, who needed his power for a mission. But Hakumen had another plan. He wanted to head towards the cauldron because
Yeah, I wanna watch this. Again. Just cause. It's one of the few non-rendered cutscenes, which means it has Linkle in it.
主がここを訪れるのを待っておったぞ。いささか待ちくたびれてしもうたがな。だが主の方はやはり覚えておらぬようじゃな。わしはこのハイラルを見守り続ける者、皆からはデクの木と呼ばれておる老木よ。それは太古の女神が作られた武器。選ばれし騎士のみが持つことを許され、厄災を打ち倒せるという大魔の剣。そして100年前、それを手にしておったのは他ならぬ主なのだ。だが気をつけろ。その剣を手に入れようとする者は剣自身に試される。今の主に果たしてそれを抜けるかどうか。もし主が衰えた体のまま引き抜こうとすれば、立ちどころに命を失うことになるじゃな。 気をつけるがよいぞ。ほっほっ。
Let's go, I'm ready. You know, that technically is the memory of the Master Sword? Or Zelda? Well, both? So why the heck does it count towards the completion to recovering all of our memories? Of our
100
own?
年前のこの場所、その剣が主の手を離れ、ハイラルの姫巫女
She
に
knew
よ
how
っ
to
て
navigate the Lost
この
Woods.
地に運ばれた時の出来事よ。
Also, she knew the Deku
今もハイラル城で懸命に戦っておる。主が必ず来てくれると信じてな。あの娘の笑顔、わしも今一度見てみたいものよ。
50 durability, that's actually pretty good. The original Master Sword had 40. But it did have 30 attack. 30 multiplied by 40, that's... It's still 10,000. Dang it. Where's the guy that's asking for the glowy hoppy? Well, I hate your kind for being pranksters, but y'all are pretty trustworthy and honest. Again, I find it so stupidly impressive. That Korok Forest isn't laggy on the emulator. Ah, there you are. Huh? Yeah, I already have it printed.
Pushing him forward. Kill Ragnar the Blood Edge. Now, why would Hanuman?
Hell yeah.
Ragnar wasn't even born until about 80 years after he fell into the Boundary. He wouldn't know who this guy was. Oh, I'll get back to that later. Sorry, I know there's a whole lot I'll get back to it later, but I promise I will return to them. Hanuman is too much for Ragnar, and he's about to defeat him. But Ragnar then taps into the Azure Grimoire and becomes strong enough to match Hanuman. But before the fight can end, Kokinori locates Hanuman and teleports him back to Sector 7. With that, Ragnar finally arrives at the Cauldron, and he finds he's trembling. He was trying to make it there in time to stop the Cauldron from creating a Moro Kumo unit.
Right, time to do something stupid.
A robot designed to explore the boundary. Well, a Moro Kumo unit is a prime field device that is designed to not just explore the boundary, but also for combat. Ragnar had already destroyed a few other ones in the previous Cauldrons.
I'm gonna sell my soul for some fashion.
U-13. U-13 is obsessed with Ragnar in a very creepy way. She acts like she loves him, but also acts like she wants the two of them to die together. Yeah, it's a little bit messed up. Oh, and to make it extra
I teleported to the wrong place, whatever.
A lot like his sister Saya. The two of them fight, and Ragnar is left bleeding out,
Oh.
spiced up and close to death. Newland impales Ragnar, and suddenly the two of them start to merge together as they both fall into the cauldron, with an injured Jin jumping in right behind them. So, yeah, the hero of the game died. Guess this story summary was quicker than I thought. Okay, you won't say the time code, you know this isn't over. So, welcome to Ragnar. Well, remember how I said the boundary can connect different locations at different times? Well, Ragnar, New, and Jin all get sent back 100 years. December 31st, 2099. And if you're thinking that date sounds familiar, it's because that's the date the Black Beast emerged from the Cauldron. That's because Ragnar is the Black Beast. Yes, the Black Beast is essentially the evolved form of the Azure Grimoire. Once it consumes enough souls, it will turn its wielder into a Black Beast. Although there is another way to make this happen. Have the Azure Grimoire merge with a Moro Kumo unit, which is why Nuke 13 had this uncontrollable urge to join with Ragnar, like it was her calling. So Ragnar got sent back in time and became the Black Beast, but what happened in the present? Not much. Just the end of the world. Yeah, bear with me, folks, because it's about to get way crazier. In space, there was a satellite that housed another Natsu forest called Takimi Mitsuchi, and this was a giant monster with unbelievable power, and the moment it woke up, it fired a blast down the Earth, like the Kagutsuchi from the map. Why did it do that? I'll get back to that later. Well, the rest of the world is okay, right? Not quite. You see, the Master Unit, for reasons that I'm sorry, but again, I'll get back to later. Like, way later. Master Unit did not want any of this to happen, so when Takumi destroys Kagutsuchi, the Master Unit just resets the timeline back to January 1st, 2100, the day right after the Black Beast appeared. And so begins the Great Blaze Blue time loop. Yes, that's right. These 100 years kept repeating themselves over and over again. Each time with small changes, but the end result always being the same. Ragnar always becomes the Black Beast. Takimi Mitsuchi always destroys Kagutsuchi. the timeline always gets reset. Because of this, it makes the story mode, the arcade mode of this game, very unique. Because every character has their own story mode with multiple endings, and all of them are technically canon, as each of them depict different runs through the time loop. Now, before we go on,
Is it
guess
really
what?
still 100 crickets?
I'm finally going to start explaining some of those questions I left dangling. Now that we know that Ragna is the Black Beast, a few puzzle pieces start to get filled in. Why did Jin cut off Ragna's arm when they were kids, and why does he still want to kill him so badly? Because of his sword. Yes, I mentioned that the Yukionaso was a Nox Victoris, meaning it was a weapon with souls inside of it, and a weapon made specifically to kill the Black Beast. So when the young Jin was given this sword, the souls inside of it overtook him and said, "Hey, is that guy who's going to become the Black Beast? Time to do the exact thing I was made to do." Same thing goes for Aquaman. He fought the Dark Organs with Black Beast, and he knew that Ragna was the Black Beast. So the moment he arrived in the present, he set out to kill Ragna before he transformed. But how does Aquaman know that Ragna is the Black Beast? Well, I'll explain that. Right now, actually. So I mentioned that Rachel Alucard was a bystander, someone who had to keep observing the world endlessly without
350.
interference. Well, this also means that she
Plus
existed
250,
outside of
that's
time.
600.
So she didn't get reset
I need
with every single
900.
time loop, meaning she had to keep witnessing these same 100 years repeating themselves over and
Alright, let's see
over
what I
again.
can sell first.
But on the 299th reset, Jin jumped into the cauldron and traveled back in time as well, and Rachel found him and said, "Oh hey, this is different. Hey Jin, you want to kill Ragna, right? Well, going through the boundary kind of wrecked your entire body and you can't fight anymore. But my father just happens to be collecting artifacts that could possibly stop the Black Beast, including this insanely powerful Susanoo armor that just needs a soul inside of it to work. So, what do you say?" Yes, Hakumen is really Jin after going through the boundary and having his soul put into the Susanoo unit. And because he knows what will happen to his brother, that's why he's so dead set on killing him. But Hakumen's story, when he confronts Jin, you actually see him feeling far more remorseful about it than Jin did when he faced Ragna. So, I guess 100 years in the boundary really chilled him out. So, to recap, Ragna's Azure Grimoire causes him to merge with the Murakumo unit, New 13. They become the Black Beast and get sent back in time. Then the satellite monster, Taki Mikazuchi, destroys the city of Takatsuchi, and the Master Unit resets the universe back to right after the Black Beast appeared 100 years ago. Eventually, over the course of all these loops with minor changes happening, Jin ends up going back in time as well and joins with the Susanoo unit to become Hakumen, which also locks Hakumen into the time loop, making him a constant that appears in every single loop as well. And I'm really wishing at this point that I did use this book from the Good Place during our King of Fighters perspective, because it fits so much better right now.
My brain is melting. How can events happen before the ones that happened before?
But that raises the question. What caused this time loop to finally break? That would be Noelle. Yes, after hundreds and hundreds of resets, eventually the stars aligned just right, and Noelle found her way to the cauldron before Ragna. She came face to face with New 13, and Noelle lost all control of her body. Speaking mechanically and engaging New 13 in combat, the Murakumo unit overpowered her, and she was about to kill Noelle when Ragna jumped in and saved her. Noelle had never seen Ragna in person before, but something about him felt familiar. Ragna fought New again, lost, and fell into the boundary with New all over again. But this time, Noelle ran in and grabbed Ragna, pulling him back up and saving him. Rachel then appears and says, "Oh, thank God it finally happened. About freaking time. Ragna finally did turn to the Black Beast, and the time loop is finally done." Well, almost. There was still the little matter of the giant satellite monster that wanted to destroy Takatsuchi, which would cause the Master Unit to rewind time again. But Rachel had waited for a millennia to see Ragna not turn to the Black Beast, so she wasn't going to let all get reset again. So she called upon the Tsukuyomi unit. You remember that giant impenetrable shield that guards the Master Unit? Well, I guess as a bystander, Rachel just has access to that thing in a great blast in case the universe is about to be destroyed case. So Rachel summons out the Tsukuyomi unit to guard Takatsuchi from the space blast, saving the city, and finally ending the time loop. So, that was it. They finally managed to break the loop. Ragna was saved. Nuke 13 was defeated, passing to the boundary. Everything was taken care of. Except for... there he is. Yep, Hazuma had been there watching and waiting the entire time. And guess what? You're never going to believe it. Better be shocked. Hazuma is actually Yuki Terame. Yes, Hazuma was the new artificial body that Relius Clover made for Terame. And he had worked his way into the inner well to not just manipulate events behind the scenes, which, again, I'll get back to later, but also because he knew that it could get him into this exact spot. You see, Terame also existed outside of reason, just like Rachel. So whenever the time loop began, he got sent back to his old body, being forced to relive everything over and over again. But he was manipulating events ever slightly to try and get everything to line up just right. Now, okay, what I'm about to explain to you is the most complicated thing about BlazBlue. And considering that I just explained the time loop, that's saying something.
Bruh.
Remember how I said County frequently referred to as a bystander, but in English they translate that to an observer? But I wasn't going to call her that because there was another thing in the game called Observer that was way more important. Yeah, here we go. It's time to talk about observing. Observing is an ability in the BlazBlue universe where, to put it as simply as possible, you can essentially pull into reality something that doesn't exist. Yeah, buckle up folks, it's about to get weird. People with the power to observe, in other words, observers, can see different possibilities, and they can then observe that possibility and bring it into reality. The process of doing this is called a phenomena intervention, and it can be something as simple as seeing someone down the street and saying, they should be standing right next to me instead. And then you observe the possibility where they're next to you, and then they just teleport down the street. Remember when Agumon was fighting Ragna and suddenly he teleported back to Sector 7? That's because Kokonoi observed him being back. But it can also be something as big and grand as creating something totally new out of nothing, or manipulating an entire location and everyone within it. Essentially, it's God powered, which makes sense, as it's basically what the Master Yoda does to control the universe. And you want to know the craziest part of this? This is actually based on real theoretical science. Yes, I do realize I just said real theoretical, but I didn't know they were explaining it. About a decade ago, I watched a documentary on the Mini-Worlds theory that was about how scientists use quantum mechanics to explain multiple realities, and as I was playing through these games, it suddenly clicked with me. Oh wait! This is the exact thing they're talking about! It's way too complicated for someone like me to explain, but essentially it involves sending out electrons to various locations, meaning they did exist at different spots all at once, but they would only appear wherever the scientist observed them. The simpler way of explaining this is Schrodinger's cat, which is an old thought experiment that says that a cat is a box with poison, and you don't know if that poison has killed the cat until you open the box and it closes. Meaning the cat is both alive and dead until you observe it. And I think Cory B, the creator of BlazBlue, knew about these theories and based observing around it. Because as I said, Schrodinger's cat is the most famous example of this. And who is one of the biggest observers of BlazBlue? Kokonoi. But it's Kokonoi. A cat. Could be a coincidence, but that's a hell of a coincidence. Now I know that observing sounds far too overpowered, but there are some drawbacks to it. For starters, as you can probably guess, what you can and cannot observe all depends on how strong your power as an observer is. So it's not like if you gain the power to observe, then you can just control time and space. No, if you have small observer powers, then you'll barely be able to do anything with it. Also, once you observe something into reality, then you have to keep observing it, or else it will return to the way it was. Unless you're just a super high and mighty all-powerful observer, then you essentially have the reality stone and you can reshape the world however you want. So, what does this have to do with anything? Well, as you've noticed from Relius and Arachne, when people fall to the boundary, it can change them. So, when Noelle leaned over the cauldron and looked in to grab Ragna, she stared directly into the boundary itself. And this gave her the eyes of the Azure, making her the successor of the Azure. What the heck does that mean? It means she was now an observer, a very high-level observer at that. But she couldn't control it just yet. And knowing this is what happened, that's when Hazuma stepped out and said, "Hey, well, look at me."
ああ
conservation powers on him. Because Terry was still just a spirit struggling to hold on to this world, needing the body of Cosmo to keep him alive and unable to access any of his power. But the moment that Noel looked at him, her eyes saw the spirit of Terry inside of Cosmo, and thereby she observed his true self, returning him back to his original powers. Cosmo then fled, ready to start the next phase of his plan, and that is where the first game ends. Yes, this was all a story about breaking an endless time loop by having Noel in the eyes of the Azure and resurrecting Terry's power. And I know that sounds like an insanely complicated series of events that all had to happen for Terry's plan to work, but you have to remember, this timeline looped hundreds upon hundreds of times. Yes, it's a crazy plan, which is why it took so many tries for it to actually work. Also, you might be looking at the title of this game wondering, Blaze Blue Calamity Trigger. What's a Calamity Trigger? Calamity Trigger was the event of Noel gaining the Eye of the Azure. Calamity Trigger because by breaking a time loop and by granting her the power to see all possibilities, it opened up a nearly infinite number of possible realities for the future to follow. And this sea of new possibilities that was formed was known as the Continuum Shift, which is the title of the next game. Also, in case anyone is wondering what the heck a Blaze Blue is, it's just another name for the Azure Grimoire. Yeah, remember how I said everything in this game has like 4 or 5 different names? There you go. So, that brings us to the second game. Before we get into that, there's one other big nutty thing in Blaze Blue's backstory that I haven't talked about yet, because it would have made 0 sense to you if you didn't know what observing was. Long ago, before all the stuff with Aurelius and the Black Thieves and the Six Heroes, back before any of that, mankind, aware of what the Master Unit was, attempted to create their own robot god. This was known as the Takamagahara system, which was presided over by 3 different AI units. The Takamagahara system also had the power to observe, and used these powers to basically steer humankind, controlling their destiny. However, the Takamagahara's observing powers were nothing compared to the Master Unit. So if the Master Unit wanted to, it could overrule anything the Takamagahara system did. And the Takamagahara system didn't like that. So they decided they wanted to kill real robot god. So they freed Terry from the Valkyrie because thanks to him having been one of the original deities from within the Valkyrie, he was immune to phenomenon intervention. Meaning the Master Unit would
That's a pretty big change.
Takamagahara was also the one who kept commanding Taki Mizuchi to fire on
Impala.
Mizuchi because they knew it would cause the Master Unit to reset the universe, which is what they wanted to happen again and again until they got the exact turnout they wanted. So okay, just to recap that. The Takamagahara brought back Terry to help them destroy the Master Unit, and they kept destroying Kagetsuchi because they knew it would force the Master Unit to reset the time loop where they would then manipulate events to try and get different results. But with Noel saving Akuma, Rachel, Master Unit wanted to keep her alive, so Rachel caused the giant shield Supernomi to protect the city. So Takamagahara still didn't like these events, but Terry, their little chaos agent down on Earth, was very happy with these events because it allowed him to use Noel to gain his powers back. Which lets us know that even though both Terry and Takamagahara had the Master Unit destroyed, they both still probably have their own plans. God, can you believe we're only on the second game? That's me to probably part of this video right now, so I just want to say if you're still watching, then thank you. That means a lot to me. A whole lot of work went into this video, as you can probably tell. If you're still watching, I assume you enjoyed the video in some way, so leave a like, leave a comment. That's the kind of stuff that lets YouTube know you're appreciate it. Okay, tell you what, everyone just go to the comments right now and just tell me, how confused are you at this point? Am I lost you? Do you still get it? Is this all just pure nonsense and you just enjoy having out on the background with some weird ASMR? Go ahead and let me know all that in the comments down below.
Hey, I'm being called out.
Second right now, just to say, if you want to support this channel even further, then we do not have a Patreon where you can go get early looks at videos, and you can find all that in the description down below. McCormick now in singles. Awaiting flavors with McCormick. Get early looks at videos, and you can find all that in the description down below. Let's
Sure.
get back to the video. Okay, let's actually start the next story. Picking up right after the events of the last game, Noel is hanging along with Ragna, but Ragna tells her to get lost. To the brother of Seven Ways, only Piranha to get attacked by Carl. He beats Carl with Nirvana Snapdragon, causing him to fall down to the bottom of the city, where he lands in the Kaka village. The Kaka clan are a group of cat-like beastkin who are all cloned from Jubei during the Dark Horde and fight against the Black Beast. Well,
What?
They didn't quite turn out as good as Jubei, so now they all just kind of chill out here in Kagatsuchi. Ragna is saved by the protector of the Kaka clan, Tao Kaka, who Ragna actually met and fought through for in the last game, but didn't really fit into my story summary, so I left it out. But as unlikely of a pair as they are, over the course of these games, Ragna and Tao would actually become friends, and Ragna enjoys Tao's company, and Tao thinks Ragna is a good guy who buys her food. Ragna leaves after he recovers and a small child who also needs food. What hungry people in these games. Ragna buys the kid food and learns there's something strange about them. This is Platinum the Trinity, and they are actually 3 souls in 1. Money contains the soul of Cinna, a small
Yeah!
girl. To carry around another Nazi tourist. The Mukureng is the 3rd soul belonging to Trinity Glassfield of the 6-0. Yes, before being killed, Trinity sent her soul in her Nazi tours, which came into possession of Luna and Cinna. Luna was trained by Jubei against the Nazi tours, and Jubei left the important task of making Kagatsuchi and finding Bane Shishigami. Speaking of Bane, he's been busy. He meets back up with Jin again after Rocket defeated him and helped him recover, because even if he despises Jin, Bane will always help someone in need. He then fights Carl and again gets a nice bonding moment with him as he helps him recover as well. Then Platinum fights Bane, and Trinity Glassfield is able to temporarily take over Platinum's body and tell us that his true enemy isn't Jin, it's the NOL itself. Someone is working behind the scenes of the NOL, and they orchestrated the incarnate civil war that led to his master's death. But his master's son is still alive, and they can bring about the revival of his clan. But in order for that to happen, Bane must head back to Kariga. Carl, on the other hand, isn't getting such good news. Paul's bankrupted, but then splits off to hunt down his father, Brilliant. He runs into Lychee, who, again, reminds him of his sister, and shows that she does care about Carl. And Carl, for probably the first time in his entire life, gets a moment to actually cry over all the horrible crap that's happened. Damn, poor Carl. I mean, I can't like him too much because he's a puppet fighter, but I do feel bad for the kid. Carl then like his father, he now has his own giant puppet. This is Rodius' own version of a Nazi Taurus called Ignis. Fun fact, Ignis was also the name of Carl's mom and Rodius' wife. Oh, that's a weird coincidence, huh?
Why not?
Yes, it's exactly what you think it is. Rodius is just the worst. Rodius
If this turns out to be way more defensive
to
than...
save his sister, he must become like him. He must come to Karga and learn how to truly see humans as nothing more than tools for his experiments.
Yep, it sure is.
His mind expands
Gosh
up
darn
to
it.
learn Rodius' secrets. Jumping back to Jin after he recovers from his injuries. For some reason, it's not responding to him. He even runs into Ragna and challenges him again, but Ragna now usually stomps him down. Through these years of battle, Jin learns that he lost his powers because the Noxian Taurus had been controlling him this entire time. But now Jin was starting to get stronger. He was starting to rebel against the sword Yukianisa. So now he wanted his powers back. He had to become stronger than the sword and be the one to control it. This was going to be hard for Jin though, because remember how Noelle was sent to retrieve Jin in the last game? Well, since she didn't come back, now Jin is a wanted man, and the rest of the NOL has been ordered to kill him on sight. And who was leading this hunt for Jin? By his old childhood friend Tsubaki. Yes, Tsubaki loved Jin, she respected him and wanted to be by his side. But she was also raised thinking that the NOL was always right and she shouldn't question them. So when Hazama returns to the NOL headquarters after the last game and tells her that she has to hunt down and kill Jin and Noelle, she was tortured by this. But she knew she had no choice and she had to agree to it. Now, Tsubaki wasn't nearly as strong as Jin or Noelle, but luckily for her, her family had in their possession an ancient weapon.
Dang it, I was hoping I could...
Marcus, known as Izayoi. Izayoi not only grants Tsubaki a huge boost to her power, but it also has the ability to steal her opponents in darkness. The downside is that it steals the light from Tsubaki herself. meaning that by using the Izuyoi, she's slowly making herself go blind. Also, the more that she uses it, the more unbalanced she begins to act. However, that's not because of the Izuyoi, that's because of something that I'll get to later. Tsubaki ends up playing against Noelle.
There you go. For now, this as much defense as I can naturally get. Without any buffs. Without any food buffs. Permanent defense.
He and Tsubaki were even closer. Tsubaki ended up dying in that timeline, and he's always cursed himself for not being able to save her. However, the Napoleon moment is cut short when Hazuma arrived, and Hazuma has been busy. He's been going around doing what he does best, torturing and manipulating. Was tempting Lychee with promises of ways to return Arachne to normal.
Oh, hello.
And a mysterious book associated
Why did they suddenly come back?
Seal and Trap Rachel.
Oh,
Now they show Tsubaki's
I saw the Satori mountain glowing. I think that's why. The world's reset.
The exact life that she always wanted, causing Tsubaki to break down and curse Noelle, saying that all the horrible things that happened to Jin were all her fault. Tsubaki goes off and she ends up fighting Jin, only getting into the dark power of the Izuyoi. Jin has to finally step up and overcome the influence of his sword. And with the life of his childhood friend on the line, Jin is able to look inside of himself, and on that day, his heart grew 3 times in size. Okay, more like 10%. A little bit closer to 5. Yeah, Jin's still a total bastard, but at least now that wasn't the sword making that happen. That was all Jin. He was overpowered the Yakuza and was now once again in control of his powers, and with these powers he was able to stop Tsubaki. So yes, Jin now no longer had Yuki Anaso commanding him to kill his brother. Meaning Jin could now finally begin his true mission of killing his brother. Yeah, remember how I said nothing in BlazBlue could ever be because of one thing? Well, Jin didn't just have Yuki Anaso manipulate him. He also had the power of order. Remember that thing from like an hour ago when I said Celica had the power of order and it was just something that the universe gave people to help balance itself and protect itself from threats? The word is much larger than the Black Beast. So Jin didn't just have the Yuki Anaso whispering in his ear. He had also been chosen by the power of order to kill his partner. That's right. Jin had the power of order entire life. Temple had anger on the shoulder to kill your brother. Now, Temple also experience what he was very busy. Come back, take the foundation of water and go to Land of 11. Now,
Damn it.
had a super rough life. She was tortured by her creator. Location of the shut down. Are treated. It might shock you to learn that the romance corporate was the one who invented them. I know, huge twist, right? If there's something horrible that happened in this universe and it involves science, it was probably right. Kominori salvaged function, and Lando was basically just in a shell at this point. But luckily, another Morokumo unit had just been dumped into the boundary with a fresh soul just sitting right there. So Kominori used her super science to reach into the boundary and just took out a sliver of Year 13 soul and put it in Lambda. Because of which Lambda was mostly a mindless obedient robot working for Kominori, but every now and again she got a brief flash of memories and feelings that she didn't understand. Oh, also Lambda 11 just happens to look a lot like Raka and Jin's sister Saya, but at this point, if I bring up a Morokumo unit, just go ahead and assume that. Also, remember Makoto Kurono, who was fighting Noelle? No, she didn't in her television this whole time, knowing that her team was with Noelle. So we don't know what happened to to the top of the Noelle page.
Whoa.
There, I'm going to torturing her because Noelle is being raped. That's how we know the truth about Noelle. The power source of fire down on the city, burning it to the ground. Just a reminder, though, it's the thing. Destroying attack on the Earth before she was created. Also created and so, was a company we respect. We update the world, and now Alpha has mastered the world's mind. Programming. Comes racing to stop Ozma, who, by the way, Rhonda already knows he is actually using her. He is the guy who took his sister away when he was a kid and locked in for another open battle gun. So even though Rhonda was in danger, he still can't have her. Rachel had just gotten done telling Rhonda that no matter what he does, he can't beat Ozma. It would just be impossible with how he was now. Rhonda, being the anime protagonist that he is, doesn't listen when someone tells him that he can't win, and he charges into battle anyway. Only to immediately learn why he can't win. You're the one who's gonna eat it. Restriction 666 released. Dimensional interface force field deployed. Blaze blue? That's what I told you got. Restriction 666 released. Deploying dimensional interface force field. What? How did you? Way. Time for a taste of real power. Cool. SO Base blue, activate. Yes, it turns out that Yuki Terumi is the one who invented the Blaze Blue, the magic grimoire that Ragna used for her arm. Ragna's was the weak, inferior model. Terumi's, on the other hand, was the top-of-the-line state-of-the-art model, but that wasn't the only big reveal. This means that the magic grimoire was basically a portable cauldron. Not just because it allowed access to the Azure inside the boundary, but also because, just like how cauldrons could create Kurokumo units, the Azure grimoire was designed to absorb souls specifically to create the Black Beast. Oh! Sort of. As I said, the Azure grimoire was a failed model. It wasn't supposed to create the Black Beast. Much like the Azure grimoire itself, Black Beast was also a failed version of what Terra was actually aiming for. A Kusanagi unit. You heard that from way back. Black field devices were robots designed to explore the boundary. Kurokumo units were black field devices designed for combat. And Kusanagi units were Kurokumos designed to kill the master unit. This is another reason why New 13 wanted to merge with Kurokumo. Kurokumo units were designed for Kusanagi units. So the Azure grimoire was basically called her Fingerhole, but because the Azure grimoire was faulty, she brought the words.
They dodged that just in the nick of time. That was pretty epic, actually.
Crazy plot points all on one side, I feel like that's warranted. But after all this time, Terry finally had the
I was like, that guy's gonna fire a laser at me, I need to dodge at the right time. And then I did. That made me feel like a badass, honestly.
Ragna had to stop him or all of existence was going to be destroyed. Ragna couldn't stop him. Yeah, Rachel was right. Ragna couldn't beat Terry. Ragna got stopped. Not only did Terry have a better Azure grimoire, he also was in possession of Ouroboros, another one of the Nox Victoruses. The letter that emerged from the cauldron now was fully transformed into Kusanagi, and Terry ordered her to head to the boundary to kill the master unit. So yeah, they called him down. Then, as Terry did, delivered the killing blow to Ragna, in jumped Lambda 11. As I said, even if it was just a good, she did have a sort of 13 soul inside of her. She did care about Ragna. Even if it was in an obsessed stalker kind of way. So she jumps in and saves him, sacrificing her own life to do it. And as she sacrifices herself, she then merges with Ragna. However, unlike in the last game, this didn't cause Ragna to change into a Black Beast. No, you see, Komori had randomly something known as an idea engine. Which was a machine that Komori invented for the purpose of
dang
measuring power and countering
Why do they all seemingly have 100% respawn rate?
Whoa. In this video because she doesn't really play into the plot after this. Because everyone is now in Trikarga, and that leads us into the next game.
Yes!
By the way, I just want to take a moment real quick to point out, I thought this video was only going to be about an hour long, and we've already cleared that, and we're only halfway through. I'm really bad at this over time. So, yeah, we might have to start going into the CliffHouse version of the CliffHouse version. So, let's do our fantastic openings with everyone in the Trikarga, including Kominoi, who has just been informed by the rest of Sector 7 that her services will no longer be needed. Yeah, Sector 7 might not be a unified team, or just a bunch of scientists all sharing resources to fight the NOL. Even still, they haven't been too happy with some of Kominoi's actions of late. However, Sector 7 doesn't just give you a pink slip and tell you to pack your stuff in a box and get out. No, if you get fired from Sector 7, you're not walking out of the building alive. They know that Kominoi will come down without a fight. So, remember way back when I mentioned that Kominoi's right-hand man, Tager, lost his entire squad to a powerful villain named Adriel? Well, Adriel has been imprisoned in Sector 7's basement this entire time. Literally just chilling down there because he's so strong, the only way they could restrain him was to cryogenically freeze him in near absolute zero temperature. They wake him up, and Adriel, being a man obsessed with battle, immediately wants to fight the first person he sees. And considering that Azrael is strong enough to break mountains in half, this would be the death sentence for anyone. But the scientists were smart enough to plan ahead and waking him up to put into Ars Vegas on Azrael. Negative said he could only fight people that wanted to fight back. Azrael wasn't too happy about this, and he ends up breaking one of the guard's shoulders by giving him a gentle pound in the back, and then he sets out to find Kokonoe. She barely escaped with her life, and she makes her way to Icargo, where she ends up meeting an unlikely ally, Kagura Lupski. Kagura is one of the strongest fighters on the planet, a solidly fulminating party animal, and also the head of the NOL Royal Guard. So why would the head of the NOL Guards want to team up with a member of Sector 7? Ex-member of Sector 7. Because Kagura and Kokonoe have secretly been working together to overthrow the NOL. Why does Kagura want to overthrow the NOL? Well, because A, have you seen the NOL? Even the people that work for them know that they're messed up. But more importantly, because remember how Fang was the #1 apprentice of Master Tenjo, the leader of Ikoria? Kagura was the #2 apprentice. Fang was entrusted with Tenjo's special weapon, a giant nail Neighbor Tenjo that he carries on his back.
Oh my god. What? Where? Oh. Right. How could I forget? This feels way too familiar, considering this was also originally the final terminal I originally unlocked when I first got to this Divine Beast. Speaking of, this is actually the first Divine Beast I don't know if I ever told that story, but the original order I went in is Garuta, Bonaboris, Revali, and then Rudanya last. And thank god I did Rudanya last, because I did not know you could disable the powers of the champions until way later. Alright, here we fucking go. Good enough. I'll put my full focus here. This fight's gonna be a doozy. Gotcha. Oh. Yeah, Guardian weapons work really well. What the hell? Bruh. Together, guys. Alright, I have a plan to beat this in a timely manner. It is almost dinner time. Oh, thank you. Fuck. You make my job very easy. Never mind. This is... No! Okay, wow, the vanilla version of these bosses. Sure are a joke. Should I go make them super difficult again? I don't know, I feel like I'll just regret that. I don't like how all they did was make the HP way more. I mean, it does kind of recreate the original feel of the bosses when I first fought them, where like I was barely doing any damage and it was a very long slog. A difficult and intense slog, mind ya, but a slog nonetheless. And by the end of it, I emerged victorious with only a few weapons remaining. And like it was super cool and stuff, but like, yeah. I don't want to deal with the edited version Master Koga, but I don't know, I'll think about it. Ooh. What do you mean? What the fuck was that? Right, well, it auto-saved, so